Can you imagine a truck that looks like it's been cut in half? This isn't science fiction. After the war, these vehicles were a real trend. They were strange, functional, and above all, eye-catching. But why did they exist? What advantages did they offer? Today we'll uncover the hidden history of half-cab trucks and why they eventually disappeared from the roads. Half-cab trucks, a post-war trend. There was a time, particularly in the decades following World War II, when it wasn't unusual to see trucks that looked as if they had been sliced in half. Literally. The entire passenger side had been removed, leaving space only for the driver. These vehicles were known as half-cab trucks, and they provided a practical solution to certain economic and functional needs of the era. Back then, there were no strict safety standards for truck cabins. This meant that modifying a standard cab into a more compact version was not only easy, but also fairly common. In fact, such a conversion could be done by a small workshop with basic tools, which helped the idea spread quickly in certain regions. The rise of half cabs in the United States. No country embraced this trend as strongly as the United States. There, manufacturers began producing half-cab versions on an industrial scale. The demand was so great that nearly every major brand of the time tried to come up with its own design. The goal was to provide a lighter, more focused, and at least in theory more efficient solution. One of the key players in popularizing this trend was Kenworth, an iconic name in American heavy transport. With its CBE, cab-beside engine series, Kenworth took the reduced cab idea to a whole new level. Instead of following the traditional layout with the engine up front, CBE trucks placed the cab directly beside the engine. This not only reduced the overall length of the vehicle, but also, according to the company, offered better visibility and fewer distractions for the driver. Kenworth didn't just build single-seat cabs, it also made extended versions that, while offering room for two people, still kept the slim profile of half cabs. The argument was straightforward: less weight, better visibility, and a cab that was more functional for long hauls. The reality? More problems than benefits. In practice, however, the experience for drivers was far from ideal. Kenworth's CBE model, for example, quickly started receiving user complaints. One of the biggest issues was wind noise. By cutting away such a large part of the cab, aerodynamics were severely compromised. Unlike conventional trucks, where airflow was evenly distributed between cab and trailer, half-cab trucks created vortices and turbulence that not only increased noise, but also raised fuel consumption. Driver comfort was another major drawback. The space was so cramped that many models offered a so-called resting area in the form of a small box behind the seat. It wasn't unusual for truckers to end up sleeping in uncomfortable positions or in the trailer itself if weather conditions allowed. Other brands that joined the trend. Kenworth wasn't alone. Mack Trucks, another legendary name in the industry, also produced half-cab trucks. In particular, its multi-axle tractors included this kind of design. For Mack, one of the main selling points was practical. By keeping the driver separated from the engine, noise and vibration levels were reduced. It also made engine access easier, since instead of opening forward, the hood tilted to the side. Alongside Kenworth and Mack, other American companies like White Motor Company and Autocar also experimented with the concept. However, few managed to turn this quirky solution into a truly sustainable option in the long run. Companies that actively used half cabs. Among the transport companies that operated fleets of these trucks were ICX, Interstate Consolidated Express, Denver-Chicago Trucking, and Garrett Freight Lines. These firms took advantage of the reduced weight and size to make deliveries faster or cheaper, especially on routes with space restrictions. But as the saying goes, not everything that glitters is gold. Over time, these companies also faced the same challenges: driver complaints, mechanical problems caused by the redesigned cab, and maintenance difficulties. Strange cabs and unconventional designs. While half-cab trucks were a temporary solution, they weren't the only vehicles with unusual designs. Throughout the 20th century, truck manufacturers experimented with all sorts of configurations. For example, cab-over-engine (COE) trucks, where the cab literally sits on top of the engine, became very popular in Europe and Japan due to strict length restrictions on highways. Companies like Volvo, Mercedes-Benz and Isuzu perfected this formula to create compact, maneuverable, and durable vehicles. Another curious example is aerospace component transporters like the Airbus Beluga transporter, which technically isn't a road truck but follows a similar logic. Maximizing capacity within an unusual shape, and when it comes to extravagance, we can't forget modified trucks with raised cabs or fully customized show cabs. In many cases, these rolling works of art include TVs, hotel-style beds, showers, and surround sound systems. While they don't serve commercial purposes, they showcase just how far creativity can go in the heavy trucking industry. The evolution of the cab, from minimalism to total comfort. Over time, the industry realized that while innovation is important, driver well-being couldn't be sacrificed. Modern cabs now offer almost home-level comfort. Quality beds, spacious areas to stretch out, ergonomic controls, smart climate systems, and advanced navigation. On top of that, legal safety requirements have become stricter. Today, any structural modification must pass rigorous testing, making the production of half cabs as they once were essentially impossible. In the United States, these trucks are no longer built for public roads. They're considered obsolete, inefficient, and, to many, aesthetically unappealing. Other relevant contributions in the trucking industry. Even though time has passed, some of the principles that inspired half cabs are still alive. The quest to reduce weight, improve visibility, and optimize fuel efficiency remains. However, instead of cutting parts of the cab away, today's engineers rely on lighter materials like aluminum alloys and carbon fiber, advanced aerodynamic designs, and ergonomic cabs that prioritize the driver. Electric and autonomous trucks are also reshaping the very concept of the cab. In models like the Tesla Semi or Volvo Vera prototypes, the cab can be fully automated or disappear altogether. This takes the idea of saving space to a whole new level, backed by much more sophisticated technology. If these curiosities about trucks with unusual cabs left you craving more rolling oddities, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell. Here you'll always find unique machines, forgotten stories, and designs that broke the mold. See you on the next route, where the strange and the mighty cross paths on the asphalt.